Hi everyone, how are you going? Welcome to day 2 on the lowdown on snacking. So today I'm just going to be tackling your questions and doing a Q&A. I've got a lot of cute questions here to get through. So thank you those of you that submitted questions, especially those of you that replied to my email that I sent out on Sunday night, and you sent lots of questions through. So thank you everybody. I hope you found yesterday's helpful. Just to summarise, yesterday's Facebook Live was really going over how snacking, particularly constant snacking, can affect your hormones, how it can affect your leptin levels, your cortisol levels, your progesterone levels, and your insulin levels. So those 4 important hormones. I went through how when we eat, it can lower our progesterone levels. So if you're chronically progesterone depleted or you've got high cortisol, it can actually cause a little bit of an imbalance. I talked about leptin and what it can do to leptin, and that leptin, when we've got lots of leptin in our body, it's good to tell us that we're not hungry, but the problem these days is if we're snacking too much, particularly on high calorie sugary foods, then it can cause us to become leptin resistant. I always also talked about cortisol. So if you've got high cortisol, snacking all the time doesn't necessarily mean be big. It's not necessarily a good thing because it can put your cortisol levels up. And I also talked about insulin. So when we eat food, what our body does, our pancreas secretes insulin in response to that food. The insulin goes into our blood. The insulin goes and gets the glucose molecules, and what the insulin does is it takes those glucose molecules and stores in our liver and stores in our body as in fatty tissue, glycogen, for when we haven't got any food stores, so when we're in starvation mode. But the problem if we're snacking too much is if we're snacking every hour, our body gets an overabundance of glucose, it gets an overabundance of insulin, and so one, we become insulin resistant, and 2, what our body keeps doing is storing in the liver, so we get conditions like fatty liver, elevated liver enzymes, and then it's kind of storing it in our fatty tissue, so we get overweight. So you can see we really have to kind of balance it out between snacking when we need to snack and not snacking too much. So those are the 4 hormones I talked about yesterday. Now if you do have any questions about yesterday, or you've got any more questions about those hormones, feel free to post them below and I'll try and get to them today. But what I wanted to answer some questions that came into me via email, and I've got them here. I've got a lovely question about kids and about how do you know how to deal with snacking for kids? Do they need to snack, and what type of snack is best for kids? Yes, I mean kids, if kids need to snack, they'll say they're hungry, and if they're hungry then it is a good idea to give them a snack. I want them to, what you need to do is you need to get a good basis for a diet first. That goes with you, that goes with me, that goes for anybody and your kids. You want to be giving them 3 balanced meals a day. So if your child is having, say, Cocoa Pops or Frosties or something for breakfast, and then snacking on sugary snacks, that isn't a good thing. Insulin levels be going up and down, inflammation is going up and down. So start, even with kids, start with those balanced meals. Really try, and if the meals are small because they don't fancy much, that's fine, give them small meals. And there's nothing wrong with giving them another meal in between lunch and breakfast, and there's nothing wrong with giving them a meal in between lunch and dinner. But what you don't want to set up is you don't want to set up this food reward kind of thing. And also you don't want to set up an addiction to snacking. So why is it they're snacking? Are they stressed? Are they feeling guilty? Are they overworked? Are they feeling bored? So try and understand why they're snacking. But there's nothing wrong with giving children snacks if they are hungry, if they're doing lots of activity, if they're, especially if their meal's going to be a little further away, so you can't get lunch to them on time, or you can't get dinner to them within a good time, then you may want to give them some food. So, having a 2-hour window of no food is fine, and then maybe giving them a snack. When you're starting off kids with snacking, you really want to focus on savoury snacks. So really focus on vegetable sticks with a seed butter or a nut butter. Focus on some good quality crackers with some grass-fed butter on top. Or focus on some avocado, on some gluten-free or some really good quality bread, some avocado on that. You want to make sure that you're incorporating some really great macronutrients, not just carbohydrate in the snack. So children definitely need more carbohydrate than us adults. So definitely give them carbohydrate with their meals, breakfast, lunch and dinner. Definitely give them carbohydrate. So by carbohydrate, I'm talking about sweet potato, I'm talking about pumpkin, basmati rice. So give them a nice vegetable soup with some basmati rice through it and some mince. Or give them some vegetables with a bit of steak and roast sweet potato. So think about their meals. They do need the carbohydrate. But best for a snack is really going on the fat and the protein side of it. So really going on the, making sure there's either some fat or making sure there's either some protein. So by fat, you've got avocado, you've got nut butter, you've got butter, olives. That's fat. Any coconut yogurt, any really good quality plain yogurt, you know, like a sheep's yogurt or something like that with some seeds in. So go for that. Go for that rather than opting for carb and sugar. Carb and sugar, if they snack on fruit, they're going to get very hungry very quickly. So if you just give them fruit on their own, the kids' moods will be going in seesaws, swinging about like this. Because when they have fruit, it does exactly the same thing as it does to us. Puts their blood sugar up, and this is the same with sugars. An hour or two later, their moods they'll suddenly drop, and so you're gonna need to give them constant snackings. So it's about stabilizing it. Really stabilize the diet. This goes for children and adults. It's exactly the same concept. The only difference being is, yes, children may need some more snacks, or yes, children definitely do need a higher carbohydrate diet, as in basmati rice, sweet potato, pumpkin, legumes, those kind of things that are easy to digest as well. So start with their meals, add in snacks. Like I said, 3 meals a day, add in a snack here, add in a snack here. And the kids might want a snack when they get home from school as well, you know, if they've gone without food or maybe they didn't eat all their lunch. But again, it's a savoury snack. And treat snacks as a mini meal. Sit down when you have a snack, and this goes for kids. Sit them down, give them a little snack. After school, you know, they might be going out and doing they might be going for sports, or they might be doing some kind of good lessons, music lessons. So treat a snack as a snack shouldn't be had on the go, running and eating, and the same with kids, the same with adults. So sit down and make sure they have their snack. So I hope that answered that question. I will get a document together with a really good comprehensive snack list. I'm getting one of those together, and I will be making it available. It's not available yet to everybody. I've got a question here from Cecilia. She's asked, my friend was telling me with hormone issues you should eat every 2 to 3 hours. Well, it really depends on what hormone issues are going on, and it really depends if you're having great meals. So as I've mentioned before, when you eat, you can lower progesterone. When you eat, it elevates cortisol. When you eat, it initiates insulin. So if you've got any of those hormone issues, and if you're eating constantly, if you're eating every 2 hours, it's going to be sending your hormones into like seesaw mode. It's all about nourishment and stabilization. So if you've got any kind of hormonal problem, start off with your main meals and then pop snacks in between. So you can pop snacks in between breakfast and lunch, and you can pop a snack in between lunch and dinner. Again, these are sit down, savory snacks. If you're going to have fruit, you know, you could add in some berries with some coconut yogurt and some seeds, and you know, you're having a portion of food. So a snack is a small portion of food. So make sure you're getting all your macronutrients, and try not to have things like sweets and sweet desserts or fruit when you're hungry. Go for savory when you're hungry. But definitely eating every 2 hours is probably too much. That means you're eating at 8 a.m., 10 a.m., 12, 2, 4, 6. It's too many times to eat in a day. That's way too many times. You need to be eating 3 times a day your main meals, and then if you need snacks, popping them in between. So that's kind of like five kind of meals that you're having, 3 main meals and 2 mini meals. And that leads me on to my question from Penny. Penny asks, is snacking the same as 5 small meals? So really you should be having a couple of you should be having a couple of sturdy meals a day. So you want to be having a couple of meals that's got some good fats and protein, some good starchy carbohydrates, and lots of veg. So 2 to 3 proper meals a day. And then popping your snacks, and your snack should be a small meal. Now if you're having 5 small meals a day, Penny, and you're balancing your macronutrients nicely, then that can work okay with you. But if you're getting any kind of symptoms from fatigue, or you're getting any bloating, or you're getting any energy problems, or you're getting any negative impacts from having these 5 small meals a day, any weight issues, metabolism problems, then I would definitely maybe reassess that and maybe see if you can go without one of those small meals, maybe have 4. You can play around with that. But having 5 small meals, that's fine as long as you balance the macronutrients. So again, if you're having 5, that means, say you're eating at 8 a.m. and then maybe you're eating at 10, maybe 1, maybe 4, and then maybe 7 or 8, then that's the trick. After dinner, if you have it at 7 or 8, after 8 p.m. you're not eating. You're not eating, you're not consuming food until breakfast the next day at 8. And so that's a really nice kind of fasting. Fasting overnight is a wonderful thing to do because you're sleeping, you're relaxed, your body can have a chance to cleanse. It's wonderful to fast overnight. If you're snacking straight up to bedtime, not only does that has been shown to cause obesity, that's one of the precursors to obesity. Studies show that you're more likely to have elevated LDL, which is your bad cholesterol. So it's definitely, I wouldn't advise snacking up to bedtime. Definitely have that fast through the night. The fast through the night is wonderful to do for anybody. As I mentioned yesterday with fasting though, with women, try not to fast that kind of from breakfast all the way through to lunch. You don't want to go longer, and especially if you're stressed or especially if you're doing intense exercise, women shouldn't fast for too long because it can affect their testosterone and it can affect their cortisol levels. Wee bit more sensitive, so just be careful there. So I hope that answered that question, Penny, but 5 small meals a day are okay as long as they're timed and you've got that nice fast between sleep from dinner and breakfast, so that's a long period of time, and as long as you're not snacking in between those 5 meals, those 5 small meals, as long as you're not snacking and as long as those meals are nicely balanced, that's okay. That'll work fine for you. So I've also got a question here from Sarah, and this is a good question because there's lots of resources and there's always lots of questions around fruit. So Sarah's asking, I've heard that fruit should be separate from meals because the sugars in fruit cause things to ferment in the gut and then you get lots of wind, bloating, that kind of thing. And it's not very good for SIBO. So this is definitely people that have SIBO, which is a small infection in your small intestine. It's a bacterial infection. Food can go into the small intestine and it causes those symptoms of lots of flatulence, maybe bloating, maybe burping, windy, pain sometimes down there, that kind of thing. So definitely you should be wary of which fruits you mix with other foods. So if you want to have a snack, or in breakfast time you want to have a bircher, putting some berries in there is normally okay. Normally your digestive system can handle that. But if you start snacking and adding in grapes with some green apple, with some nuts and with some seeds, it all gets a little bit much for your digestive system, particularly if you've got a weak digestive system, and it can cause the fermenting. So I would suggest, try and have fruit away from a main meal. The best times to have fruit are probably a bit later on in the day if you want to do a snack with fruit. Some people, you can mix it. Also, green smoothies work fine, and green smoothies have fat and protein in them. We put fruit in them, and they tend to cause less fermenting and bloating. Reason being is because they're nicely blended, the fibers have been blended up nicely, so they're easy for you to digest, but also you use less fruit. So you can combine fruit with proteins and fats, but it's really about how much you're having. If you're snacking, like I said, on a big bunch of grapes and you're snacking through the afternoon and you're also having some almonds, that's going to cause disaster, and it's going to cause lots of bloating and lots of flatulence, wind and pain. So just be careful there. So nothing wrong with mixing some of your fruits. Berries in particular mix wonderfully with other foods. A bit of coconut yogurt, some sunflower seeds and some blueberries go nicely together, and they shouldn't cause any issues. So it's really the high sugar fruits you want to be careful of. Steer away from the high sugar fruits. And I wouldn't be mixing the high sugar fruits, like your red apples with things, because that might cause a bit of bloating. in your smoothies, it's fine. So I hope that answered that question. But definitely fruit, really, you know, fruit, you can have a little bit of fruit after dinner if you want, as a, you know, you could have a little bit of watermelon or some fruit, some berries. With fruit, I don't recommend more than 2 portions of fruit a day. So you really want to focus on your veggies with fruit, 2 portions a day, and that can be a portion of berries, and then you could have a portion of something like pineapple or pawpaw. They're great enzymes, or even kiwi fruit's really good. Kiwi fruit's really nutritious. So really try and stay within that 2 portions of fruit a day, and don't go out of that fruit 2 portions a day if you can help it. If you've got diabetes, or if you've got blood sugar issues, if you've got insulin resistant, polycystic ovarian syndrome, you really want to be careful with the fruit that you're intaking, because that's only going to exacerbate things. So you really want to be careful with that. And my recommendation would not be to have too much fruit before lunch. Definitely don't start the day with a big bowl of fruit when you've got any blood sugar issues, because that's going to just spike the insulin, the blood glucose, and then it's going to start that whole cascade of inflammation for the rest of the day. And with leptin levels, you know, if your leptin levels are out, it means you have to snack a lot, or you're never satisfied at each meal. You know, you're hungry all the time. You always feel like you need something else. And that's a sign that you've either got leptin resistance or your leptin levels are out. And fruit can actually exacerbate that if you start the day with sugary, you know, high sugar laden breakfast. So always start the day with savoury, especially if you've got any of those issues, and especially if you're insulin resistant. So those were the questions I got today. So thanks for those wonderful questions. I hope that did kind of demystify that a bit. But really, just to start, you know, if it is confusing and if you're still like, what do I need to do? Start with those 3 meals a day, and then slot some snacks in between. That's the best way to approach this, especially if you're finding you're snacking on the hour. And I would definitely stop the grazing. So if you've got anything at your desk at work and you're grazing, or you find yourself in the fridge every hour, I would definitely cut that back, and I would go to those 3 meals. And if you need to add in snacks, add in snacks. But if you don't need to add in snacks because you're not hungry, don't add in snacks. And if you are craving foods, don't add in snacks. Only add in food if you're hungry, and add in savoury food as well, which is nicely balanced with the macronutrients. So I will put up a list. You know, we've got half an avocado, we've got some cracker with avocado, butter on crackers, you've got vegetable sticks with nut butter, you could have a chia pudding, you could have some green smoothie, you could have something like a chicken drumstick or something like that. So there are a number of different things you can be prepared with, even a mini salad kind of thing. I often have that at work. I've just bring some leftovers, and I'll have that as a little snack if I'm going for a long period of time without eating. So I will make available a comprehensive snack list. I'm putting it together, and I'll pop it up and I'll let you guys know when that's available. But if you've got any other questions about snacking, and you know, your thoughts on snacking, and if you want to ask any advice on about how you do it and what you snack on, I would love to hear that. So thanks again for the questions that you sent through. Really appreciate that. I hope you found this helpful, and I will talk to you all soon. Thank you. Bye bye.